Hello everyone, welcome to Wanda's Cafe, the show where guests stop by the cafe and just tell us things about issues that are going on here in the community in Glendale, Burbank, parts of LA. And today, guess who stopped by? I'm very proud to have the guest that we have here today. It's Marsha Ramos.
Right, thanks for having me.
From the Burbank City Council member.
Right.
Thank you for stopping by. See, how long have you been with the Burbank City Council now? You were elected when?
On April 10th and installed on May 1st. So I have 2 months under my belt.
And prior, I'm going to ask you more about that, but prior to that, you were with the, I know you were with the Human Relations Coalition, I believe, or Human Relations Commission. Is it a commission?
No, it's a nonprofit organization. It's a council in Burbank. And then I was also involved at the county level in the Los Angeles County Human Relations Mutual Assistance Consortium. I'm very involved in that, founding member.
Yeah, and what kinds of things were they doing?
Well, it initially started, our first meeting was at the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and I believe it was in 1994. Mm-hmm. And it was the first attempt to bring cities together that had human relations organizations, councils, commissions, so that we could begin to collaborate and network. So that's how it began.
And Burbank started, how long have they had a human relations commission?
The council was formed in 1958. So it's been around a long time, a lot of dedicated and community activists. At a time that it was necessary. Before the civil rights movement, people got involved and formed it.
And it kept going. There's a need for it then, I guess, still today.
And absolutely, like every organization, especially a nonprofit, it goes through its cycles. And I'm just really proud to have been a very, very active part of that council in Burbank in the 90s. I was also involved in the 80s. In the 80s in Burbank, things were rather quiet and, you know, not a whole lot of issues, although they were out there.
To grow.
And then in the 90s, boy, the issues and the demographic changes just really hit everyone, and we were a different community with different needs.
And Burbank got active and started to address those issues immediately.
Absolutely.
I saw that. I was around a lot of the Burbank people and as they did that. And I guess that's what got you in position to become city council member.
It was very much a very, very key role, and in terms of, I was president of the council for 2 years during a time where issues were very much out there, and the experience that I gained those years prior and after was very valuable experience, because when you're dealing with issues that are controversial and heated at times and uncomfortable, that's where you really learn about leadership. And it's very, very good experience. At the time, I remember, right before I was president, I didn't like to do any sort of public speaking at all. But when you're called to, when you're passionate about things, you're called to it, and you do maybe what you're not comfortable doing, but what needs to be done. And so that I did, and I learned a lot, and I'm very grateful.
So what made you decide to run for the city council? Is that the same reason you just expressed? Getting involved and passionate about issues?
Well, Human Relations Council are very much about the people issues, but through the Human Relations Council, I became involved in cultural awareness within the city, then the arts, then I was involved in the Art and Public Places Committee, then I was appointed to the Park and Recreation Board, and then the Police Commission, and then I was on various nonprofit organizations, and it just seemed to just kind of
It's a snowball was rolling.
Yeah, it was something definitely not planned. It just happened.
Evolved. And it's tremendous. I've known you for a number of years out there in the community, and Mom just as active as.
Oh yeah, you have that kind of model.
Oh yes,
it's that.
You can't help but.
Right, it's a way of life.
It's a way of life. You know, I noticed one thing. I was watching one of the city council, Burbank council meetings, and being African American, I'm often always asked to represent and it just seems that I can't get away from being Black. I mean, no matter what the conversation is about, people tend to bring it back to that subject, and like that's the only thing that I'm capable of understanding is that, and I did notice that, and you may not have the same feeling, but I noticed one of the members of the, when you have your speakers from the public,
right?
Public oral communications, one of them wanted you to represent.
Right. Yeah, we have a regular during our oral communications period, and she isn't always very nice. And what's interesting is she paints people however she wants to paint them, may be true, may be untrue, but she definitely, her issue is you didn't vote for a single Latino. Well, in fact, I did. There weren't a whole lot of applicants, but you can't always base your decisions on strictly that.
No,
it's
can't.
important to have representation.
Sure.
And that I'm always cognizant on, and I think that's part of my calling, is because I do have contacts in communities where maybe other council members don't. But I have contacts with the Filipino community, African American, Armenian, and and Latinos, and I brought as many diverse backgrounds as I could and sought that they apply. A lot of people I knew from various backgrounds applied, and finally you do it on who you think will best serve the city and what they bring.
Absolutely.
And those are the toughest decisions ever, but you cannot just say, oh, their last name is, therefore I will.
So we thought being a city council member was a piece of cake, and you all get cars, and you get invited to everything, and you don't have to really make any decisions. Somebody else tells you what to do.
Every week you make somebody unhappy.
As a matter of fact, I was watching the airport hearings, and I plan to have a show dealing just with the airport issue. But I
hope it'll be 2 hours. No.
I was going to say it needs to be 2 hours because tell us actually, just so that the people that don't keep up with what's going on in the community, what is, briefly in about a second or two, what is the airport issue?
The airport issue is we are in a joint powers agreement. The cities of Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena jointly have the authority to run the airport. The city councils appoint commissioners. The biggest issue is the airport's in the city of Burbank. Therefore, the quality of life for the residents that surround the airport is very, very important to them. They recognize that they live in an airport flight path area. However, the push has been in the past, we want to expand the airport. Not Burbank residents per se, but our other
neighboring cities.
Right.
Like Glendale.
Right, and they weren't, and we need to always explain about quality of life. It impacts those neighbors, but it's, in my mind, it's a thing that ebbs and flows. Once one neighborhood is impacted significantly, can you imagine if it was a huge airport, what the quality of life and those home and property values would be like there? It wouldn't be good. I believe it would have reverberating effects. I believe those flights would then pass over parts of Glendale, and I think once you start talking about neighborhoods and quality of life, then I'm hoping we can all come together and talk about, is there a need to expand? How are we going to limit some of those growths? What kind of restrictions can we put in place? Beginning with a mandatory curfew at night. And that's really what it's down to. And the 3 cities last night met, the city councils. We didn't have all the entire councils met, but the entire council of Glendale was present, as well as Burbank. And few members from Pasadena were there, and more would have been there, but it was a scheduling conflict, to talk about just some basic policies and principles. Can we all agree on these quality of life issues? And so
I noticed that they did talk about perhaps forming a subcommittee, I believe they phrased it, to look into those issues that concern each one of those cities and bring that back to the city council. Some of the members seemed interested, some of the members of that meeting seemed interested in something like that, and others were concerned about not knowing enough and having somebody else's opinion. I believe that's
right.
So do you think that's ever going to be, or is that a good thing?
Well, how I've learned just in the way you get things done with large bodies, you do have to sometimes have subcommittees, and that's all we're asking is appoint 2 representatives or the mayor an additional representative to go through the 10 points, the policy points. Can we come to an agreement? Do you have questions on this? Let's really take some time and talk about them, and then come up to the bigger body with some more understanding and some more discussion and dialogue. But let's see first on a smaller basis whether we're even going to get there. Because as a big body, we could have 3 hours, 4-hour meetings.
Been in those big body meetings.
And I've just found that if you break it into subcommittees, you can have a better dialogue and get into the details and then do subcommittee reports to your prospective councils, and then we hope to gather back as a big body and decide whether it's something we can come to agreement. And I'm sure not everybody will be in the same page, but that's the real challenge.
That's always the challenge. I didn't want to ask you questions that would have you giving your decision, because I know you like to make decisions after you've heard all the facts.
Yes.
And of course the facts have not been gathered yet completely, so it's not time to make those decisions. So when I ask you these questions, keep in mind that I'm not asking you to give me the decisions. Of course, I'd like to be the first to know. But one of the things that I noticed, and I was trying to understand that, and I thought it seemed to be such a great idea, but I didn't really thoroughly understand, what is this about I believe it's a housing development with childcare?
Oh, we do at the City Council meeting on Tuesday. As you know, through redevelopment, you have to use some of those funds that you get when you do your redevelopment projects and set them aside for affordable housing. There is a great need for affordable housing in Burbank. There's also a great need for childcare. And there is a particular neighborhood that's near the airport that really was in some need of some revitalization. There were multifamily units there that were pretty much dilapidated. So the city went in and purchased that property, redevelopment, worked with the developer to build some single-family, small, 3-story buildings and a child care center. Now it is near the airport, and that's the things that you really struggle with. It's near the airport, you're putting people there, but yet on the other hand, multifamily, there were already people there, and people do need places to live. So what can we do to mitigate those impacts? So part of the agreement is that you had sound installation in all the buildings, including the child care center. You shared some open space to make use of a smaller piece of property, but yet the prices for prospective buyers are affordable, and I think that's really important.
So is that sort of a condominium type of thing where?
Actually, they're each single-family homes, but they're in call it a planned development, so they're all part of a development, in that they share their open space, so then they will form a homeowners association.
And I guess the homeowners association, I guess I'm concerned as how does the child care fit into there and be operated? Who's doing that? Is that the homeowners association?
At this point, we had not gone. We hope that it will be. In fact, it is part of the agreement. We do not have a specific child care operator, and that was raised for concern. We are soliciting nonprofit organizations to run the child care center, and it was my hope, and I made a comment about it, is that those homeowners would have access to that child care center.
And you said the city purchased that property?
Yes.
And so they would be responsible for the child care center, is that it? Well, I'm asking because it's such an interesting and such an outstanding project, it sounds like.
They would sign an agreement with the nonprofit organization to actually run that child care center. And I think the developer actually turns it over for $1.
Oh.
So then the operations is something that can be affordable, and that's how you build the affordability factor into childcare. Because with people working, childcare is not only is it a need, it is a great burden to get quality for an affordable price. I mean, I raised 2 children, and it is hard to find.
The other thing that you see Burbank seems to be wrestling with is the urgent care.
Yes, emergency care.
Emergency care, and for
unlike Glendale, we don't have several hospitals in town.
Okay.
We have one, Providence St. Joseph's Medical Center, and they do have an emergency room. They're undergoing construction at the current time, and they're in their 3rd phase, and will be done in the fall of year 2000. They'll add 8 more treatment areas. However, that does not fulfill the need because it's not only Burbank residents that go to Providence St. Joseph's, it's people in neighboring communities of Los Angeles. And it has an excellent reputation.
So
people
in Los Angeles go
Absolutely.
there for care as well?
Absolutely. For emergency, it's, you want to get to the quickest room and a room with quality.
Since we're so closely connected to Glendale and the traveling time isn't that great, do people come for when they can't?
I would think they would. I know, especially with these HMOs, depending on who your primary care, you might want to choose Glendale Memorial as your facility when you go to an emergency room.
So since it was on the City Council agenda, what steps are you taking? You said you're building?
Well, Providence St. Joseph's is doing that, and they're their own corporation and private, but we're going to work with them along with, I believe there's 2 urgent care centers in the city, and put on our cable access public information and maybe do a show. Where else you can go. People go to the emergency room at St. Joseph's for the flu. Well, in some cases, I'm sure it's quite appropriate. In other cases, it's perhaps the pediatric aftercare center that could do it for a child, or there's the urgent care centers, or urgent care centers in North Hollywood, Glendale.
And what is the population of Burbank at this time?
It's about 106.
Okay.
We're over 100,000.
Oh, okay. The other thing is, what made you, you were not raised in Burbank,
Yes,
right?
I was.
Were you?
Yes, I was.
So that's why this is, such a passion for you.
Really it is, because it's some place that I grew up and it was always a very positive experience. I've seen it change incredibly, not only in terms of the business environment and the services that the city has to offer, but also in terms of the people. I mean, I grew up at a time where, there wasn't a whole lot of people that had this color skin in my school. There really wasn't.
You faced diversity issues.
Oh, I did. I absolutely faced them firsthand. And I met my husband in high school.
And what?
He's Latino,
okay.
And his father was born in Burbank. His family came to Burbank in the early 20s, and so his dad was born in Burbank, raised in Burbank, graduated from Burbank High School, and
so you have
my sons
real roots.
My sons are third-generation natives. So
I know your mom and dad, and I'm going. They live in Glendale, though.
They moved to Glendale. Oh, how many years have they lived there now? Probably at least 10.
Yeah, I thought, I don't know why, I just thought that you were from Glendale first and then moved to Burbank.
I know, they deserted me in Glendale.
Yeah, they did.
But my passion has always been in Burbank.
Well, we needed her in Glendale anyway.
Yeah. And boy, they're having a great time too.
She's doing outstanding work. She's a member of an officer with the Human Relations Coalition in Glendale. So,
I'm a chip off the old block.
Yes. And so, when your husband, what does he think
about City Council?
About
and my community involvement.
Busy, because you see a lot of men, there is this one politician, I don't remember what state, but the people were in an uproar because she was pregnant.
Oh, my husband and my mom and I were just talking about that story the other day. How it could happen, and how, wow, people as if it really was any of their business, is how my mom and I were just chatting just yesterday about it.
I feel the same way.
But I'll tell you, my husband, he came from a 2-income family. His mom worked real hard and his dad worked real hard. And he lost his parents at a very young age, 18, when he was 18 and I think 22. He had already lost his mom and dad. But his mom was always a working mom, and he really appreciates the role of women in the workforce. And when he knew me in high school, I was one of those that I was in this club and then I'd be in that sport. And
so you trained him well.
And he knew, all along. It's not like I just suddenly got involved. I mean, coming from my mom and my dad, right. It's just a way of life.
He knew that was a way of life for you.
Right. He knew it was a way of life.
So he encourages.
He encouraged, in fact, he was probably one of the people in my life that really, really encouraged me to run, along with my two sons who are teenagers now, but they really were very supportive and encouraging.
And what did they do in the campaign?
Oh, everything. Knocked on doors in the rain.
Knocked on doors, okay.
In the rain, licked envelopes, folded brochures, just pretty much managed while I wasn't around as much, and just so very, very supportive of me.
And what types of things did your husband do during the campaign?
He did the same thing. He did everything from put the signs together to put them out to knock. Every weekend the whole family really knocked on doors. My parents did. I had a wonderful campaign committee, just wonderful, wonderful support. It was the opportunity to bring together all the different aspects of people in my life, from my church friends to people I worked with in the human relations to people I worked with on city committees, service club organization, and to bring them all together with so many different perspectives. That's what I loved about my campaign. It so much mirrored what the community was, and that I had liberals and conservatives, moderates, every political affiliation, seniors. I had kids that were involved. It was just really wonderful, and to watch people work together and to bring them together to really move a mountain. I mean, it was.
That was, yes.
Yeah, it was just incredible.
Is this the first actual campaign?
Oh,
I
yeah.
know you were appointed to different positions and elected maybe within
But I
the
had
body.
never worked a campaign.
Never worked a campaign and won.
Yeah, we won. First time out.
First time.
First time out, and I think that was pretty historic.
Yes. That was fabulous.
Yeah, it really was.
Now, when you first took office, and you say you were sworn in what day?
May 1st.
May 1st. How did you feel? Because Greg Krikorian was on the show once, and he just got elected to the school board, and that was the question I wanted to hear from him. How did you feel? Because I would love to be you. How does it feel? How did it feel?
In
that
fact,
day?
it was really interesting time because people would say, "Well, are you excited?" and it was like. It was a feeling I had never really experienced. It was much like when you're getting married. Remember, those who have gone down that aisle. It's anticipation, it's joy, but yet you're taking a big step. This even felt even bigger in some ways. It was because it was so public, and that I recognized that I am responsible to the citizens to run the business of the city with a wonderful staff and a great city manager and my colleagues, but it's an awesome responsibility because if you're going to go into it, you want to do it in a very trustworthy way with integrity, and I want to do it as to the best of my ability, which is really the way I like to do everything.
Well, I'm sure you will do that because that's why you were elected the first time out. Your constituents must know something about you.
So it was like I was almost speechless. There was so much I wanted to say, and yet how do you capture it and put it in words in a few minutes? It was overwhelming, but I was very, very pleased and, ready to serve.
I'm going to go back to the lady who asked you that question about the ethnicity thing.
Okay.
Tell me some of the concerns that you might have, just the Latino community might have. Just why would she have a need for you to put someone on that board?
Well, actually, I think in terms of representation, I think she's got a point. Okay. There is not enough Latino, Armenian, Filipino, minority African American represenation. We need to do better.
Is it because, and you said it just the way I would say it, is it because we, at least African Americans I know, don't get involved in politics enough?
I went
or in the community.
I had a guy that, his name is Ted, very qualified, lot to give, fresh face, African American, recruited him, asked him to apply, and it was one hand that went up. But
that's great. That's great.
But I did hear from staff; they were very impressed with him, and we're hoping that in 2 years they'll take another look. What incumbents That's what I learned this time out.
Okay.
Incumbents have so much staying power.
Yes. That's one of the reasons they had the campaign reform.
Oh, it just really, and it's not
limits.
easy being up there and saying, okay, incumbent. And there were many times where I didn't vote for an incumbent. There was a couple times that I did. If I felt that particular incumbent had so much more to offer, but I tried to be flexible and balance it. But I'll tell you, those that are applying for boards and commission, I'm not one that I don't plan on doing this for 20 years. I can tell you that.
I was about to ask you, what is
I
that
absolutely
future?
don't. When I was appointed to the member of the Park and Recreation Board, it was some of the biggest park projects in the history of Burbank that I was involved with. I served 4 years because I got done what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was time for me to move on and do something else. And then I went, through my human relations work, the police commission worked really well. And it was a different perspective. It wasn't quite as demanding in terms of time. But I feel like when you do what you set out to do, there are 20 applicants to that commission. My goodness, give others the opportunity.
To do. Now,
That's just me.
We kind of like hinted a little bit about what 20 years from now, do you plan to stay? So we only have a few more minutes, so tell me, what's the future of Marsha?
The future is to do the very best the next 4 years.
I don't think we're going to have to worry about that because I've worked with you and I've watched you work, and I know that they were fortunate to get you on that council, and that's why you were elected the first time out. The community, I'm sure, had no doubts. So is there something that you really stands out in your mind that you'd really, really like to do other than to do the best? Is there any particular, just when, as the issues come up?
As the issues come up, being that I've only been on there 2 months, I can't even, partisan politics, I will tell you, at times, I really struggle with it, and that's why I like the local.
Why do you say partisan politics?
Because it gets very nasty.
Okay.
It gets very, very nasty. And as the candidate, I've been in a campaign where I've had a little touch of that.
So you don't want to go all the way up to the...
Well, I'm not saying I wouldn't want to go.
I think you will.
I'm just saying it's something that I would hesitate.
You're too good
at this time
to stop at this level. I just don't see it.
But it's hard. It is hard.
Well, Marsha, thank you for stopping by the cafe. I was so glad to see you.
Oh, well, this was easy. It's an absolute joy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's not like on the city council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on Wanda's Cafe.
All righty.
Bye.